and welcome to my Monday morning thoughts on Monday the 19th of October. Now, last week I started talking about changing your career and looking at two particular areas. One, which was identifying your strengths, capabilities, and particularly your own awesomeness. You know, what do you bring to the table? What have you got from and for another employer? You know, what is it that's special to you? Also, considering what you don't want next from your career, really unpicking, you know, if you're trying to get away from something, what is that? So hopefully those of you who watched last week will have done some work on that and potentially have come to some great insight about who you are and where you are on your journey in terms of your new career. Today I want to talk about something else, which is more about commonality than potentially difference, because I think this is a very important point too, and that's whether you're perhaps looking to change sector, do something different than you've perhaps done before. So I want to look at some commonalities across your experiences and also commonalities in some skills that you may have. First of all, some of us can feel a little bit daunted about doing something new, potentially a new sector that we think might be different to where we've been before. But you'll be surprised at the commonalities of experience that you will have in a new organisation that's in a different sector. And what I'd like you to perhaps think about today is when you've actually started a new job in the past, even if it's in the same sector, there's loads of differences. Whether you change sector, whether it's something completely different, there's always something new to learn within an organisation. And you've been through that a number of times in your career, I'm sure. So I want you to think about the skills and the capabilities you used in those situations. You know, how did you navigate those first few months in a strange environment? You know, unless you're actually changing jobs in the same organisation and there's some systems and processes you know already like the back of your hand, whenever we step into something new, there is loads of stuff there. In addition to perhaps the key skills that we're actually going to be employing in our job, that we need to get our head around. How the systems work, the IT is different, how you book meetings is different, you know, the way the company communicates, the culture. There are a whole heap of things, but you've done that a few times. You've actually stepped into brand new situations at least 2 or 3 times, I suspect, in your career, if not more, and you've adapted. You found out how to navigate what happens in that organisation and have gone on to be settled, know them, and carry on with your work. Don't underplay that. Working into something new, stepping into something new, will employ those same skills you've already used. So point 1 today is potentially to look at that. And those skills that you've used in those situations are common across all organisations. You know, there's things like managing a team, perhaps managing a project, managing yourself. You know, how did you get to know people in your new organisation? How did you establish those relationships? You know, relationship management is the same in every single organisation to some extent. And how you do that is, you know, your skill, your capability. So you'll employ that in whatever organisation you go into, whether it's a new sector or not. You know, how you manage yourself, you know, how you manage your time, how you manage your tasks, how you assess what's a priority or not. You know, that's not going to change wherever you are. There are going to be commonalities of expertise and experience that don't just rely on the skill of the job, that are going to be common across nearly all organisations in some way, shape or form. So it isn't what you do, but it's how you do it. So how do you do your job? You know, what is it about you and how you do what you do on a daily basis that's important? You know, arranging your diary, managing priorities, setting boundaries, liaising with external stakeholders within your organizations. If you are able to form trusting relationships in your current role, you're going to be able to do that wherever you go. The only difference may be some skill or knowledge that you don't yet have. And knowledge is something you can pick up. Creating trusted relationships and creating long-lasting relationships that add value to where you are is something you've got already. So you can take that into any organisation, and that is going to help you. Learning knowledge is the straightforward bit. How you do the job is the bit that some people find different in organisations, or difficult if their environment expects them to do things a little differently. But in most cases, you can use and adapt the capabilities you have already. You assign priorities every day. You have meetings. You perhaps manage meetings. You organise work or working as part of a team. Those things will be common in all jobs, regardless of the sector, etc. So you have loads of skills that organisations will want. Relationship management is a key one, especially in the current situation where you've potentially been managing relationships externally, like I'm sort of doing now over a Zoom call. These things will be appreciated by another organisation. And also, some of the skills that you use will be common as well. Over the years that I've worked in business, sectors now overlap more than they ever have done in my working lifetime. Many, many years ago, telecoms sat in one space, media sat in another space, and technology sat in another space as well. Whereas today, they all overlap completely. And they're sometimes in the same organisation now, whereas they never used to. They used to sit quite distinctly. IT, for example, crosses everything in technology now. So your ability to use technology will be relevant in nearly all organisations, even if it isn't the key skill area that you're employed for. And I'm thinking particularly around financial services and technology. In the past, they were two totally different sectors, but you now have what we call fintech, which is potentially those banking and financial institutions that are purely online and perhaps don't have a physical presence as some of our high street banks, but is the crossover of tech and the financial services industry. There are so many areas that have commonality rather than differentness. And the problem we have when we think a sector is completely different, rather than looking at the commonalities, is, as I've mentioned in previous videos, we potentially put ourselves in a less than position. And it's really hard when we do that and we start doubting ourselves to move forward. So yes, there will be some differences and you may have to learn something new, but there's potentially a huge amount of commonality that you can use in that new organisation. So, excuse me, my thoughts and tips for today are: start to look for some of the commonalities, all those strengths and skills that you started looking at last time. Think about how common they are across organisations, and don't focus on some of the key points, not diminishing them, that are not common. So think of the commonalities across all organisations and what you bring to the table. The more that you can put on that table, the more confidence you will have to move forward. And you probably haven't unpacked everything at all in these two brief video sessions. There's more work that you can do underneath that. And as you know, I always put a few notes underneath here to potentially prompt you to do some journaling and think about your skills and experience.